Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sophie and welcome to my June 2025 bullet journal setup. June is actually my birthday month, and so I'm really excited to show you guys this theme because usually for June I tend to put a lot of stress and unnecessary anxiety over my theme. I want it to be just right and perfect for my birthday, and I know that sounds so dumb and it is really unnecessary, but I am super happy with how this theme turned out. I stressed a lot about my plans and my ideas the week leading up to filming, and then the day before I changed my entire mind as per usual. I did something very random, but I'm very excited to show you guys this setup. I think it turned out really cool and kind of different and out of the ordinary for me. So for my theme for June, I'm challenging myself with a portrait drawing, and you guys know that I really do like drawing people, especially with alcohol markers, but it does require a little more focus and detail than usual. So I wanted to refresh my proportion skills with this month's theme, and I did so with a course called Expressive Gesture and Poses for Characters that I took on Craftsy, the sponsor of today's video. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative. It is a video platform site where they teach through instructional videos taught by talented experts. Their instructors walk you through each technique with step-by-step demonstrations in all sorts of artistic categories, including drawing, sewing, gardening, baking, crochet, photography, and more. I took a class by Gerardo Escamilla about character poses and gestures because I wanted accurate proportions, but also a stylized drawing, not 100% realistic. I loved his three main structures system that make up the head, torso, and pelvis of all human characters. I used these references and techniques when sketching a second piece of art for this video that you will see a little later, and it made it so easy to keep my character proportionate and build up the rest of her body shape and shoulders and back based on the basic anatomy that I had already drawn. Craftsy is always creating new classes to keep you coming back for more and help you stay inspired, and as a member you'll also have access to Craftsy's live streaming tutorials where expert instructors share their tips, answer questions, and engage with the community in real time. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in the video description below will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49, which is an insane steal. This is valid for new members only, but I hope it encourages you to get into a creative hobby or refine your art with these expert tutorials. Thank you so much to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. Alright, so getting into the cover page drawing, like I said, that second drawing I was doing will be seen later in the video, but this is my art for the very first page, and I am so happy with it. So basically, I drew this character, this creature. She is a woman with horns and a diadem over her forehead. So is she a princess? Is she a fairy? Is she half deer? Girl, I don't know. I just like how she looks. I took inspiration from this picture on the side here. I thought this art was just gorgeous and I wanted to draw it in my own style, of course keeping those proportions from the Craftsy lesson in my mind. And then I also wanted to add a dragon onto this because first of all, I love dragons. Okay, I love Fourth Wing. I love How to Train Your Dragon. Give me dragon, fantasy, movies, books, anything, I will read it. And recently, and by recently I mean last month, I watched the first season of Game of Thrones and I loved it. Now, since I have to admit I have not continued watching more than a couple episodes into season 2, I need to go back and catch up, but I don't really watch that much TV. That being said, okay, the dragons in Game of Thrones, specifically, if you know, you know, that very last scene of the first season with our girl Daenerys and the dragons, oh my gosh, that scene gave me chills. I was obsessed. And so I really thought that I wanted to draw someone with just baby dragons crawling over their shoulders or just peeking out from the side of this fantastical creature. And that's what I did. So is this character Daenerys? No, she looks nothing like her. She's going to have red hair in just a minute. It's going to be very different. But the concept of a girl fantasy magical person with a dragon was kind of where I was going with this. And I'm going to be using a very wild color palette. It's very different from Daenerys, but I think it looks kind of cool. So I did all of the line art for this drawing with brown marker, not black. I don't even know the name of this fine liner, otherwise I would have told you. It was just a random one that I saw in my collection, but usually I do all of my line art in black, and because this is going to be a very warmed toned spread, I wanted to use brown instead. And then going in with the base coloring. So I wanted to do a color palette that I have never done before, and ironically this kind of turned out a little similar to last June, because last June I did an hourglass theme and it had a lot of golds and beiges and browns, but I wanted to add something a little more striking in this image. So there is going to be a lot of yellow and gold and brown in this color scheme, but I also have bright fiery red hair on this character. Very out of the ordinary for me, very much not in my normal color scheme. I really tend to lean towards neutrals, browns, pinks, greens, that kind of area. But like I said, for June, I'm trying to do something really cool for my birthday, and I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone just a little bit. this is my art style. You know, I really do like to draw like this, but the coloring and the color palette it's very new for me. And I was so nervous filming this because I thought it would be so ugly with like all the yellows and reds. Like on the surface, not a very pretty and aesthetic color palette. And also, I don't even know if it screams summer. In hindsight, the reds, the browns, the yellows, the golds, like that's giving autumn colors, especially with like the deer kind of horns coming out of this character's head. And I understand that, but my take on this is it isn't autumnal because it's more like the sun, you know, like it's more like the sun in the summer, like very fiery and red and yellow and like passionate, bright primary colors, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of trying to squint and convince myself that the colors in this, it's not autumnal, it's more like fiery sun. And that's also why the leaves around the circle behind our girl's head, they were originally going to be like curved and swoopy like they were in the reference image, but then I changed them to be more spiky because I kind of thought it looked like flames, like little sparks of fire coming off of these branches, you know? And the more I leaned into that like fiery, this girl is the embodiment of the sun, or maybe like she's a sun goddess or something with like her fiery dragon companions. I thought that was a really cool concept, very fantastical, very, you know, out of the ordinary, and it made me very excited. I'm really happy with how this looks. If you can't hear the smile in my voice, just know it is there. My favorite part, 100%, of watching back these time lapses is seeing the shadows come to life, specifically with the skin and hair. Like I always like to start all of my drawings with a base color in all of the spots that will have color, that way I know where the color is balanced and stuff, but then I will always go in with at least 2, potentially 3 darker colors of the same hue and add a lot of shadows. And here I'm using the reference picture to know where to put the shadows in the hair, but I'm using red, obviously not blue, and it is so satisfying to see that gradient blend on each of the strands of hair between the bright red highlights and the very, very dark maroon-like shadows, especially under the horns and under her chin where the shadows or the light wouldn't actually touch the hair. That being said, in the opposite way where the light would touch the hair on all of the highlights, I actually left little white gaps to be the stark highlights against the sun, and later I will also go back and add some white gel pen to really emphasize those parts as well. Because I do a lot of alcohol marker art and I tend to stick with the same style, I really just find it a little intuitive to follow reference pictures and or just imagine where the light source would be and put the shadows and highlights in those opposite places. Now I will say that if you're looking for more instructions on alcohol markers, I do have an entire playlist where I teach you how to use alcohol markers on this channel, and recently I have been doing collaborations with Ohuhu, who is the brand of markers that I am using here, and on Ohuhu's channel I have also been doing some marker tutorials, and you can tell because the thumbnails look very similar to my channel's thumbnails. So if you want to go check out their channel as well, you can for more tutorials, or I will also link my alcohol marker playlist in the description box below. The final details of this drawing really come together when I pull out that white gel pen and add the highlights to the eyes. I think that just adding that little glisten or that little highlight in not only our girl's eyes, but also the dragon's eyes makes everything pop so much more and makes this whole thing come to life. So overall, it did take me like an hour and a half to draw this from start to finish, but I'm super happy with it. And I hope that you guys love the finished result. All right, so like I said, this art here is actually going to be going into the cover page of the spread that we made earlier. So I had my calendar on the very left, but I wanted to come and mimic the exact same shape on the right here. So I actually drew on mixed media paper instead of sticker paper to allow the alcohol markers to absorb more into thicker paper. And so I decided to glue it in once I cut it out, but I'm not gonna lie, this glue was not nearly strong enough for what I needed. And I had already put it down before I could use double-sided tape. So maybe I should have used a double-sided tape to start out with. It was kind of hard because the antlers had such like detailed cuts around them. What I ended up doing was just taking some regular tape and taping down those little edges that that way if I moved my hand over the image, it wouldn't like pick up the paper and mess up the art. It looks a little bit weird in person, but you cannot see the tape on camera, at least I hope you can't. So it almost looks like I just drew this image directly into my bullet journal. But the reason I didn't do that is because alcohol markers will bleed through paper, and so I didn't want to cause any bleeding on the opposite side of the cover page here. Now, saying that is very ironic because in just a second I am actually going to be using alcohol markers directly into my bullet journal on the left side of the spread. Basically, I wanted these antler horns and also the circle behind the calendar to perfectly mimic or mirror the circle and antlers on the right, except for since I'm drawing directly into my bullet journal this time, I am using water-based markers for the antlers. Now, brown is easy because it's super dark and it's very easy to mimic the exact same dark brown on the right, but I couldn't find water-based markers that were in the same light yellow shades as the top of the circle on the right page. And so what I did was break my own rule, and I just went directly into my bullet journal with alcohol markers and blended them out like I did on mixed media paper. Now, the problem with this is if I flip my calendar over to the opposite side, you can see the marker bleed through. I don't think I showed it on camera, but you can see it. Just take my word for it. But thankfully, I had left a blank spread in between that page and also my May setup in case I wanted to make something in between these 2 months. And so what I'll probably end up doing is just like gluing those pages together, and that way the backside of the alcohol marker will not be seen. With that all being said, however, if I didn't take that extra page precaution in advance, there would have been definitely an issue with the bleeding. So 100% don't do as I do as I say, and that is only do alcohol markers on a separate sheet of paper unless you want some serious ghosting and bleeding in your journal. Okay, so we are back to the piece of art that I was drawing for my Craftsy sponsorship, and that is this girl sitting. Now, same character as before, same girl with red hair, but I'm trying to draw her from a different position, and I'm not only using inspiration from the Craftsy tutorial that I took, but I'm also using inspiration from this reference picture here, where I'm seeing a character with her back to the camera and a couple of dragons kind of climbing around her body. The main difference between the reference image and my image is that I not only added antlers, but I also changed all the colors, and also instead of a moon in the back, it's the same circle as before, almost emulating the sun with that yellow gradient. And also the dragons themselves are shaped differently. So if you notice, the first drawing that I made of the dragon on the first page was very almost like bat-like, it's a weird creature. It's not like a fantasy dragon. It's like a small little weird baby dragon. And so I tried to emulate those same features using this reference picture for the shape and the position of the dragon. So there is one on her right shoulder, one crawling over her left shoulder, almost like sniffing her braid. And then there's one that's sitting in her lap and only the tip of the wing peeks out. Now, because this drawing was much smaller than the first one, I didn't have to add as many details and it took me much less time. I think it took me like 20 minutes to do this start to finish, especially after already knowing the placement of all the colors from the first drawing. It's always more stressful to do the first one, but then on the second one, it becomes so much easier once you already know kind of your system and your method. So yeah, this one was a lot easier and quicker and also smaller in general, but I like to have different angles of the same characters because this is going to go on the next spread in my bullet journal, and it allows all of the pages to stay cohesive and in the same theme because the art is very similar. So we're hopping right back into the bullet journal again. I know this video has been a lot of back and forth between me and my sketchbook and me and my journal, but I'm trying to make it more interesting and not do all of the art at once. Anyway, but yeah, I'm gluing this back into my journal on the exact same technique as I did in the first place with glue and then taping down the edges that kind of picked up a little bit because the glue wasn't strong enough. Not a perfect technique, but when is a bullet journal perfect? You know, I certainly don't. And then I did have to take a break from filming because I had to go hang out with my friends and it was getting a little late in the evening. So we are going to jump cut to the next day in just a minute, and I will start doing the line art for this side of the spread. I'm pulling out that same brown fine liner that I used for all of the art. I did this on the first page too, I don't think I mentioned it, but I'm trying to keep everything consistent, and so instead of using black, I'm using brown for everything. I wouldn't even be able to tell you what size this pen is because again, there is no markings on it for brand or size or anything that I saw. I would guess it's probably around a 0.5 millimeter pen, kind of similar to ones you might get from Ohuhu or the Sakura Pigma Micron pens if you want a reference. In general, I like to use a little bit thinner of a pen when I'm doing fine liner, like closer to an 01, 03 size, but because I really only had one marker to choose from, or one pen, I suppose, I really wasn't trying to be picky here. So on the left, I have a monthly goals section. I don't even know how much I'm going to use this for because June is an interesting month. Not only is it summer, so I don't have any school to keep track of, but also my family and I are going on a really exciting vacation to Europe this month. It's our first time going to Europe. We're all super excited and it's going to take up like half of the month. And so because of that, I am not really planning on doing anything particular this month. I'm trying to keep it very chill, not many plans, but I want to have a space for goals anyway. And then I also have just a little small tracker on the left, not many, just 2, but you know, it does the job for me. Now on the right, this is where I'm actually going to do something a little wild and crazy, and that is taking inspiration from my past self. I had nothing else to put on the right side of the spread here. I stopped tracking my expenses a couple months ago. I really have not been using my bullet journal very consistently recently, and I'm trying to make really cute spreads for the video, but also not overwhelm myself with spreads that I'm not going to eventually use, which is why my goals and habit tracker are very small and minimized in this month. But one thing I used to do a lot in my journal that I, to be honest, have not done in I think years is a playlist spread, and this is so much fun. I love going back in my old journals and seeing my playlists because I forget, you know, old songs that I used to listen to or artists that I used to be really obsessed with at different times in my life. And so writing this here, I basically have a list of 10 different like play buttons where I'll have the different songs that I'm listening to right now or that are on repeat on my playlist. And when I come back and look at this journal in like 3 years, I'll be like, oh, I forgot that I was super into like Frank Ocean or Troye Sivan. Who else? I've gotten really into Kendrick Lamar. Mac Miller, of course, is always there. Brittany Broski, ironically, one of her songs is on this playlist. Who else? I'm forgetting who all I put on here. I guess I'll see whenever I eventually write down the rest of the names later. But yeah, I'm just gonna be like, wow, Sophie, I forgot that you used to listen to all these creators, and maybe you'll go back and re-listen to them. You being me. I mean, you could also listen to the playlist too, but me, I will go back and re-listen to my old music. It's just like a little time capsule, and I really love this idea. So that's why I have a playlist spread on the right. Not very functional, really just here for aesthetics and to be cute, but I'm really happy that I did something that old Sophie used to do a lot in her bullet journal. And speaking of, one more technique that I used to do very often is ombre lettering. I haven't done this in a hot second, but I figured that because there is an ombre between a reddish and a maroonish brown in the hair on both the cover page and on this page, I wanted to mimic that with a lettering here. It was kind of just another way to bring red into the spread. I was so nervous about the red because I didn't want to make the play buttons with red because it would be too dark, and I didn't want the red to overwhelm the spread. I really preferred the yellow and gold tones, at least with my water-based markers compared to my alcohol markers. And so I was like, how do I add red into the spread to keep the theme going but not overwhelm it? And then my idea was to use ombre lettering. Is it my best lettering ever? No, it could be a little better, but I honestly really shouldn't complain because it's been a hot second since I've done ombre in my bullet journal. And again, I'm trying things that I used to do, and I'm trying to re-spark that love for journaling that I used to have. And I mean, I still kind of do, but y'all know that recently I've been a little bit creatively slumped with my bullet journal, so I'm trying to re-spark that with old ideas, and I think it kind of worked for this setup. Now, one problem that did occur in this setup is that the ombre lettering did bleed through a little bit because I was doing so many layerings with water-based markers. Water-based markers do not bleed nearly as much as alcohol markers do, but they will bleed if you use multiple layers in the same spot, and since I was blending over and over, it did bleed through a little bit. Now, I'm doing the line art first on this spread, but I will be making a little paper band-aid and patching up this little area by just cutting a little square of excess dot grid paper that I had, so it's the exact same color of white, it's the same dot grid. I just wanted to like cut and paste it right on top, and then it covers up this little spot, and I will eventually draw the leaf and weekly spread borders on top of it. Now, what is this spread doing? Basically, it is a weekly spread. However, this spot on the right is something very new, and I'm going to be making a video about it super soon, so maybe I should keep it a little bit of a secret. But basically, this is the first 8 days of the month before I leave on my trip, and so I'm going to make a weekly spread for this. And on the right side, I'm going to be having a basically blank spread, and it's blank on purpose because I'm going to be filling it in a little later with book updates. I'm not going to say much about that because I'm not really consistent with reading journal on like a daily basis, but I'm trying something new this month, and I think I'm gonna make a video about it a little later. So if you don't want to miss out on that video where I talk about my reading updates in my bullet journal and some reading spread ideas, definitely make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. All right, I've yapped your ear off for like 20 minutes, but I hope that you really enjoyed this theme. It's different. The colors are weird. I'm trying new things and old things, ironically, but I'm really very happy with it, and I hope that you are too. I post new bullet journaling videos every single Saturday, and there will be some really fun ones coming out this month. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok if you want to see more short form content. I've been posting more consistently over there. Eek, it's been a little crazy getting back into that again. Don't forget to check out Craftsy with the link in my description box below. The first 1,000 people to click it will get a full year of premium membership for only $8.49. Girl, don't miss on a steal like that. Anyway, I love you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, and I will see you next week.